Hey there, it's Tom Ryan, founder and CEO of ICR. Before we get into the next episode, I wanted to ask that you subscribe to the show. It'll help us get even more unique and interesting guests on the podcast and in turn continue to educate management teams and the growing ecosystem that creates value for fast-growing private and public companies. And while you're at it, head over to Apple Podcasts and leave us a 5-star rating. Very much appreciated.
Air conditioning, plumbing, electrical, they never break at convenient times.
When your air conditioner breaks down in the middle of the summer, you want somebody at your house to fix it within hours. And if you're a company that can offer that kind of service, the financial upside can be enormous.
The HVAC, plumbing, electrical business residentially, it's about $180 billion across the lower 48.
My name is Tom Ryan, and this is Welcome to the Arena, the ICR podcast. Each week, I sit down with today's business leaders to give you an inside scoop on some of America's most prosperous public companies, their origins, their challenges, and the keys to their success. Today, our guest is Ken Haines, who was appointed CEO of the Wrench Group almost 10 years ago. He brings with him more than 47 years of experience in the home services industry, and at the Wrench Group, he's guided the company to become the second largest non-franchised home services company in the United States. Ken's leadership philosophy is anchored in 4 core principles. Partner with market-leading companies and cultures, attract and retain the best team members, enable cross-market collaboration, and deliver exceptional customer service. It sounds easy on paper, but in the real world, not so much. Let's enter the arena with Ken Haines. So for those that don't know, give us a sense of what you do and kind of the scale of the business, if that's okay.
We are in the home services business. We work primarily with residential single-family homeowners. We take care of air conditioning, plumbing, electrical, and related services. Currently, we are in 27 markets across 14 states. I was employee number 1 back in 2016. So we're basically break fix, everything from replacing air conditioning units to maintaining air conditioning units to fixing them. Same thing with plumbing and electrical and some related services.
Yeah. And when you say you were employee number 1, how did the company come together? Like, how did that opportunity come to you? Because I know you've been in the space for 40 years.
Yeah, I'm going to correct you. 47 years.
47, oh my gosh.
I had to take my shoes off to help count, but I've been doing it my whole life.
Yeah.
I got into the space. I grew up in New York, and back in those days, trade programs were offered during high school. And I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur and own my own business. And somehow at the old age of 15, I decided to get into HVAC and major appliance repair.
Wow.
While in high school. And, I got out and I loved it. I excelled at it and loved it so much. At 19, I opened my first company and off it went. And so I had been in this space really in the industry my entire life. And in 2015, I had the opportunity to partner with 2 friends of mine who owned HVAC companies, one in Phoenix, one in Houston.
Yep.
And I owned a business in Atlanta at the time called Coolray. And we put the business together with some help from a small private equity sponsor in San Francisco with the intent on trying to package it up, hire a banker, and sell it to private equity. And that's what we did. So InvestCorp came knocking. We went through a process. They came in and, they fell in love with the space and what we were doing. I think they liked the art of the possible. And so by March of 2016, we were owned by private equity and InvestCorp. And June of that year appointed me CEO. And off we went.
What did you experience kind of leading up to the Wrench Group where like, you know what, I've kind of seen this industry evolve. I've gone through it, the day-to-day stuff. How did you know you could be different and better?
I was there. I owned the business between 2003 and late 15, early 16. And look, it wasn't easy. I mean, I fell in love with the space early on. I knew what it took to grow these businesses.
Yep.
And it's all about people, and it's all about culture, and it's all about taking care of customers. And the folks that I partnered with had the same philosophy. And I knew that this was something that in a business that's largely fragmented with mom and pop,
yep,
undercapitalized and professional businesses, that we can partner with other businesses across the country and we can scale to something really special. And that's what we've done.
Yeah. And why did you favor the, for lack of a better term, company-owned over franchised model? Because, private equity loves asset light. They like not a lot of CapEx and a lot of cash flow. Take us through your thinking on that.
Well, I think, when you own these markets, you have a lot more control. And a good friend of mine was on the other side, and he's frustrated half the time because you look for good companies, you sell franchises, you get a piece of their growth, and you can lead them down a path, but you don't have any control. And so
can't push too hard.
You can't push too hard. It's their business. They own it. And they can decide what they're going to do, what they're not going to do. With us, it starts with one, partnering with great businesses and great markets, great cultures and great leaders. Folks are going to stay, roll equity, do the hard work, come along for the journey. They're willing to do what's necessary to be successful. And so it's a very different from a franchise model where we have a lot more control, where we're going to focus our efforts, a lot of collaboration, a lot of best practice sharing, a lot of non-negotiables at the same time.
Yep.
You don't have that with the franchise model.
Yeah, for sure. And the business model that you guys have kind of emphasizes supporting local operations, scaling nationally, obviously. How do you strike that balance between autonomy and consistency?
We're very careful around when do we centralize versus standardize. And it's two very different things. But a lot of best practice sharing, a lot of standardization, some centralization. We want to make sure that the folks that are running our businesses, which by the way have been very, very successful, we don't want to change that. But there's things you have to do, as you become a big business.
Yep.
So it is tough striking a balance between autonomy, entrepreneurship. We want that to remain. But, we don't acquire fixer-uppers. We're acquiring businesses that are successful.
Yeah.
And we're not a cost-out strategy, all right? We don't cyclize for the sake of centralization. But again, we do spend a lot of time and effort around standardizing business. So we've got a lot of non-negotiables.
Yeah.
You got to have a lot of rigor around things like finance and accounting, technology, marketing, and operations, but also a balance of entrepreneurship.
How do you approach the culture test? Like, you go find a potential partner, the business on paper, the numbers look good, but like they have to be like good people with similar values and like gas in the tank. How have you learned to evaluate people and the culture thing over your career?
Well, as we think about who we want to partner with, we don't use the word acquire, we say partner, because it is a partnership.
Yeah.
And as we sit down and we have those initial conversations with the current owners or ownership, we talk a lot about cultures. And it's funny with us, we have a shared culture, right? Very aligned on values. One of the things that we're very careful about is not going in and changing culture. So if you think about, we're in 27 markets, you can say we have 27 different cultures. These businesses are very, very local, but we have a common culture around, and we call it spirit, is our values. And so while it may look and feel a little different at a location, we're all locked in on the same values and how we're going to approach the business, how we're going to take care of our employees, how we're going to treat our employees, how we're going to treat customers. So we're very much aligned on it. And it's one of the things as I think about back in the 90s, when we were acquiring businesses, and it was a true roll-up strategy. We're going in, change the name.
Yeah.
We don't change the name. We leave local brands intact. We went in and we changed those cultures.
Yep.
And once you do that, those businesses are very hard to fix. It's all about location leadership and all about culture. And so there's a lot of work to do on the back end to make sure that we are building a common culture as we're one company.
I know the customer experience has got to be great. It's one of your core pillars that I mentioned in your introduction. If I'm a customer and I call up your local people and I need a bunch of stuff done, what does exceptional customer service look like for me?
Yeah, it's a really good question and something that we talk about a lot. We have what we call a CVP or customer value proposition. And, we can talk about technology. We can talk about change. At the end of the day, it comes down to taking care of customers. That never changes regardless. All right. So a big part of our customer value proposition is, number one, it starts with making it really easy for customers to do business with us. And it all starts when the phone rings, right? How we answer the phone, how we treat that customer. Was it easy to get to us? Did we answer on the first ring? Or could you get us online and book very easily and not have to talk to anyone? Because a lot of the younger folks, that's what they want. They don't want to talk to a call center. They want to go in, use the app and get off, and your schedule's there. So making it really easy to do business with us. And then, offering service same day, next day. I mean, as you know, air conditioning, plumbing, electrical, they never break at convenient times. And it's always an emergency.
Yeah. August in Atlanta. Or, July and August in Phoenix where it's 118 degrees. And people don't have air conditioning. They don't want to hear it's going to be a week to come out. You got to get out. So we're same day, next day, year round, regardless of the temperature, regardless how busy we are. You got to get to people quick. So make it really easy to do business with us. Have a lot of empathy. Take care of the customer. Make it convenient for them. They don't want to hear, you got to sit home, 8 hours waiting on a tech to show up in a truck. We make it so we have tight time windows. Show up when we say we're going to show up.
Tech comes out, the truck looks good, he looks good, he's wearing shoe covers, he's going to give customers options, he's going to be friendly, all those things that you have to do to earn that business. For us, it's really about delivering wow and customer experience and just exceeding expectations every step along the way. And if you do that, people are going to come back, right?
Yeah.
And they'll be customers for life. And so for us, it's a big part of our CVP is just doing a great job and exceeding expectations on every interaction.
Do you do surveys like after every home visit, or like how do you measure that?
We do.
Yeah.
We do electronic survey. Yeah. So we know exactly if we've done a good job and not do good, we're going to know. Look, sometimes things don't go well.
Yeah.
Sometimes we make mistakes. Sometimes we screw up. It's all about, fixing those problems. So if a customer does call, it's making sure that CSRs and others have the ability to make decisions. If we need to refund money, whatever we have to do, you're not getting passed along to 2 or 3 people. Take care of the customer, have empathy, and get it done. And again, we make mistakes, but own it and fix it.
Yeah. Well, I would imagine during COVID, your phones were ringing off the hook. People at home needed things immediately. There was obviously a surge in home services. How have you seen consumer expectation shifts since then, if at all?
I mean, look, we did really, really well during COVID.
Yep.
We had to get everybody out of the office. We hadn't fully deployed our tech stack. And so just from answering phones and some of those things, we had a rush to get that stuff done. And we did, with the help of our partners, get all that worked out fairly quickly. And, we did really well during the pandemic as people were working largely from home and trapped in their houses. It's been kind of a challenging couple of years. For one, there was some pull forward business related to the COVID area that I think we're still feeling even, several years later. And the industry has experienced a lot of regulatory changes. There's still a lot of, uncertainty, tariffs. It's like buying a car now almost.
Yeah.
It's not unusual for a consumer to pay anywhere between $13,000 and $18,000 to replace an air conditioning system.
Yep.
Between tariffs and supply chain issues and interest rates, it's gotten tougher. So I think what we see more than anything else now are people kind of sitting tight. The good news is people have jobs and the economy seems to be doing okay, but people are cautious. So for example, a few years ago, if a technician was in a home and the unit was nearing the end of its useful life and it was very expensive to operate, in those days, they would say, yeah, let's go ahead and replace it. It's expensive, but it's time.
Yep.
As long as it's working today, they're willing to kick the can down the road. So we've seen some habits change around buying, right? But in terms of expectations, I haven't seen much of a shift from consumers.
When it comes to home services, disruptive technologies like AI are going to revolutionize customer service and some labor practices. But I also wanted to hear from Ken about innovations in the equipment itself and how increased efficiency and personalization will impact the business in years to come.
I mean, this is an industry that historically has been very, very slow to adapt technology. And finally, over the last several years, it's starting to change. In terms of technology, customer facing, I think there's some cool stuff. I mean, as we look at AI and machine learning, there's going to be some things, I think, for the homeowner that changes the way we operate, right? In terms of more energy efficient equipment, connected homes, technology that predicts when units are going to break, right? Systems that talk to us that will give us a heads up before the homeowner even knows there's an issue. We'll get notified saying, hey, we think there may be an issue at this home. I'm going to call Mrs. Jones before the homeowner even has a symptom, right? So there's things around monitoring, sensors, detection that not only predict, but analyze in real time that provide feedback back to us. So a lot of integration of smart home technology is coming. It's been long overdue. I think it's just starting to hit, and we'll see over time how things look. And then you have around technology. I mean, in terms of customer experience, in terms of booking calls online, paying invoices online, renewing subscriptions, things where people don't have to talk to an agent. It's all automated. So this is all kind of early on for us, but it's coming. And there's been some inroads made around the technology and how reliable it is. So I think over the next 10 years, we'll see significant changes in adoption of those tools. I don't see AI replacing people. And look, I mean, I think there's some neat stuff around remote diagnostics where we can log in and we can see it and take people through and help DIY folks, but you're always going to have a tech at the house.
Yeah.
I think there's some things back office that'll help, but you'll always have techs in the home, and that aspect will never change.
Another technology angle is just kind of eco-friendly and energy efficient home solutions. How are you kind of rallying behind that stuff? And is there significant demand for it? Do you think it's going to kind of sweep across demographics and across the nation?
I mentioned earlier, there's some regulatory changes of equipment, removing chlorofluorocarbons out of refrigerants. That's happening as we speak. Also, electrification of HVAC. Heat pumps are being pushed pretty hard. There's some government incentives, although I understand that those incentives may be going away in the new bill in Washington that's being debated as we speak. But electrification is a big one. These units are so much more efficient, and technology on how these units operate today. I started out as a technician back in the day when I learned back in trade school when I was 15 years old.
Yeah.
I mean, all you needed was a screwdriver and a volt-ohm-meter. Now you need to have a degree in electronics, right?
Yeah.
Because it's gotten a lot more complicated, a lot more technology. We have units that are throttling up and down. They do all these crazy things that all drive efficiency and longevity. You also have these smart thermostats.
Yeah.
That in the past where normally you'd walk over to the thermostat, you'd say, okay, I want the house to be 74 degrees. You set it for 74. Now it's looking at the ambient environment, the outdoor environment, looking at humidity. It's calculating what you want, how long it's going to take, what speed do I run on, and how do I throttle. And I think it's here to stay. I mean, people want this. It's not inexpensive, but ultimately, if you look at total cost of ownership, it's cheaper in the long run. And at the end of the day, it makes the we're comfortable.
Yeah.
And we're seeing that people are willing to pay for it.
One of the challenges I would imagine that you have is maybe labor shortage. How do you deal with challenges attracting labor of that skill, and how do you retain them?
Yeah, there is a labor shortage. There's no question that we don't have enough people entering the trades. And as I think about when I was growing up again in trade schools, we've got to get back to the high schools offering these curriculums because it's such a rewarding and great industry to work in. So there is a shortage. However, for us, it has not been an issue for a couple of reasons. One, we're focused on it. Most companies that complain about they can't find technicians, it's because it's a side job of someone's. They don't shine a bright enough light on it, and they don't focus full-time on recruitment. We made a decision, back in 2000, I want to say it's probably 2019, to create a shared service where it sits at Wrench, and we help locations find folks. And it's probably a dozen folks that are working full-time in the business, collaborating with locations, and all they do is recruiting and find people. And it's worked out really well. The other thing is we decided we're going to have to home grow ourselves. So we've created tech schools within a lot of our markets, especially our bigger markets, where we'll bring people in off the street that have just a little bit of aptitude, that want to get into the industry, and we'll put them through a 6 to 12-month course, but we'll pay for it. And they'll learn the trade. Now, they'll come in, when they get through 6 or 12 months, they're still entry level. Then we hire them, and they're working for us, and we can then train them our way. So we've invested a lot of money and resources to home grow, and that's been very, very successful. In terms of retention, it's local, right? I mean, there's only so much that we can do from where we sit to retain folks. Outside of making sure that we've got a really competitive wage set and our benefits match those of bigger businesses, not necessarily competitors, but the likes of like a UPS or a FedEx, because we're competing ultimately for the same people. And so we want to be able to compete on that level. But, as I like to say, I mean, people don't leave businesses, people leave people. So for us, it's around leadership and training and making sure that we're giving people opportunity and we're treating them well. And if you do that, you're going to have better retention. And our retention really in a high turnover space, blue collar industry, is fairly low. It's about 20%. And
interesting.
That's really good.
Yeah.
It's really good. An industry that's got 30, 40% turnover. And so we're very focused on it. Now it's gotten a little more difficult, but historically it's been, you want to grow this business, double digits, high double digits in the teens, you need two things. You need a little bit of money to advertise, and you need capacity. So get the bodies, train them well, have the trucks, market, and you're going to take share. And that's worked really well for us.
Well, you have a national footprint now. Are there new services you can get into or verticals given that national footprint and the right you've earned to go into people's homes? Is there anything else you can do beyond kind of HVAC and plumbing and electrical?
There are, but those three industries alone, as you think about the HVAC, plumbing, electrical business residentially, it's about $180 billion.
Wow.
Across the lower 48. And we've got such a small piece of that when you think about the white space and the opportunity. And so we're really good at air conditioning, plumbing, electrical, and some related stuff. Like we do whole house water filtration and we do insulation, but they're related to the plumbing and HVAC trades and home generation, right? Generators, obviously, but that's also part of electrical as I see it. There's so much opportunity. Why expand into other verticals when there's so much white space and opportunity to take share from the market, in those other three trades? And so I don't see us expanding into other verticals like garage door openers or roofing or, anytime soon. Let's focus on what we know and what we're really, really good at, because there's so much opportunity to grow in those three trades that there's no reason to bring on additional risk and distraction. Let's focus on what we're good at.
Yeah, that's really well said. When you look out at the rest of 2025 and into 26, what are the one or two things that you're fired up about?
Oh, boy. Well, I'll be really fired up if the government lowers interest rates.
I agree.
And Trump backs off his tariffs. Look, it's a great space. I mean, it's not recession proof, but it is resistant. The industry has shown that it does really well during tough times. There's so many great things going on. We're an essential business, non-discretionary spending. The fact that there's so much emphasis on technology, AI, our assets are tremendous. We've got great brands and great folks running those businesses that I see nothing but upside. And as technology continues to gain traction, improve, it's really exciting. I mean, I hope I see it. I hope I'm still here before we really see technology's impact over the next 10 years.
I hear you.
But I'm just excited in general. There's so much space. It's such a great industry. It's so rewarding. I love what we do. I love what I do, and know that this industry is going to be here for a long time, taking care of people.
That was Ken Haines, the CEO of the Wrench Group, who, along with his team, has built a national home services powerhouse. And they've done so using a unique non-franchise model that ensures adherence to high standards while also encouraging an entrepreneurial spirit among their partners. And with some exciting tech emerging in the HVAC, plumbing, and electrical sector, there seems to be plenty of opportunities ahead for them to drive value. Special thanks to Ken Haines for walking us through the Wrench Group, their strategy, and what lies ahead. If you found this episode insightful, please subscribe to the show on your podcast app. Throw us a 5-star rating. It'll really help us grow the show and get more interesting voices on the podcast. I'm Tom Ryan. We'll see you next time back in the arena.
References to specific stocks are not intended to be recommendations for specific trading behavior. Comments presented on this podcast are intended for informational and educational purposes only, and do not represent opinions or recommendations on whether to buy, sell, or hold shares of a particular stock. All investors are advised to conduct their own independent research into individual stocks before making a trading decision. In addition, investors are advised that past stock performance is no guarantee of future price performance.